My name is Mia. I'm 34 years old, and if you had met me 10 years ago, you might have thought I had my entire life mapped out. I was a pediatric nurse at Memorial Hospital, recently promoted to head nurse of my floor. I loved my work, though exhausting, it gave me purpose. My boyfriend Mark, an architect with ambitious blueprints in both his career and our relationship, and I had been together for 2 years. We were beginning to talk about moving in together. Children were a distant thought, something for the future once the foundation of our lives felt unshakable. Back then, I clung to the belief that life rewarded careful planning. I kept calendars, color-coded budgets, and even an unspoken timeline in my head. Marriage by 30, a house with a yard by 32, maybe a child or two before 35. Order, predictability, safety. But one October evening shattered all of that with the sound of a doorbell. It was raining hard, the kind of relentless storm that made the city streets gleam like black glass. I'd just finished a grueling 12-hour shift, kicked off my soaked shoes, and collapsed onto the couch with a glass of cheap wine and leftover takeout. The apartment was quiet. Mark had plans with colleagues, and I relished the silence. The doorbell rang. At first, I ignored it, assuming it was a package mix-up. But it rang again, this time sharper, more insistent. Annoyed, I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and shuffled to the door. When I opened it, the world tilted. There on my doormat sat a car seat covered by a thin, damp blanket. A baby's cry pierced the storm as I pulled the blanket back, revealing a tiny girl with flushed cheeks and wisps of dark hair curling against her forehead. She couldn't have been more than 3 months old. My hands trembled as I spotted a folded piece of paper tucked beside her. I knew that handwriting, instantly loopy, careless letters from my sister Amanda. Her name is Lily. I cannot do this. Take care of her. I'm sorry. 7 words. No explanation, no plan, no return address. Just abandonment wrapped in ink. I stared up and down the empty street, rain soaking my hair, half expecting Amanda to appear from the shadows and shout that it was all some cruel joke. But there was nothing, only the wail of the baby who was suddenly terrifyingly my responsibility. I scooped up the car seat, heart hammering, and stumbled inside. My first instinct was to call Amanda. Straight to voicemail, again and again. The silence on the other end felt heavier than the thunder outside. Then I called my parents. Surely they would help. Surely they'd understand that I couldn't do this alone. My mother answered, her tone clipped. When I explained her response, chilled me. We told her not to have that baby. She made her choice. Now she's running away from it, typical Amanda. But what do I do? My voice cracked. I don't know how to care for a newborn. She's your granddaughter. My father's voice cut in flat and firm. She left her with you, not us. We're done cleaning up Amanda's messes. She is your burden now. Before I could argue, they hung up. The baby's cries grew louder, urgent, and I panicked. No formula, no diapers, no crib, nothing. Mark, I called him desperate. Please, can you stop by the store? Just formula, diapers, anything. There was a pause, then his incredulous laugh. Your sister just dumped a baby on you, Mia. This is insane. You need to call social services. I can't just hand her over to strangers in the middle of the night. She's family. This isn't our problem, he snapped. Don't drag me into Amanda's chaos again. That was the moment I knew I was alone. I strapped Lily back into her car seat, grabbed my keys, and drove through the storm to a 24-hour supermarket. I must have looked deranged, hair dripping, still in scrubs, clutching a crying infant, while frantically Googling which formula was safe. My hands shook so badly I dropped a pack of diapers, and an older woman stocking shelves came over. She listened quietly as I babbled about my niece, about my sister, about how I had no idea what I was doing. Her eyes softened. She helped me gather everything I needed, formula bottles, diapers, wipes. You'll figure it out, she said, gently patting my arm. Mothers always do, even the ones who didn't expect to be. That first night blurred into exhaustion. Lily screamed for hours. I mixed formula too hot, then too cold. I changed diapers clumsily, terrified of hurting her tiny limbs. Finally, I lined a drawer with blankets, laid her inside, and sat on the floor beside her, my body trembling from fatigue. As dawn broke, I leaned close to her sleeping face. Her small fists were curled, her breaths even. Something shifted in me, an unfamiliar but fierce instinct. I don't know what happened with your mom, I whispered. But I'm here. I'll figure this out. You're safe with me now. That promise spoken in the dark would define the next decade of my life. But even as I said it, unease coiled in my chest. Why had Amanda disappeared without a trace? Why had my parents reacted with such cruelty? What truth was buried beneath her 7-word note? I didn't know it then, but those questions would come back years later, dragging my carefully rebuilt world into yet another storm. The next weeks felt like falling headfirst into a storm without a map. I had gone from a woman who scheduled every hour of her life to someone who lived in 2-hour increments between bottle feedings. The first morning, I called the hospital and requested emergency family leave. My supervisor, Mrs. Halpern, who had always praised my reliability, paused for only a moment before approving 2 weeks. "Mia, if anyone deserves some grace, it's you," she said gently. I nearly cried from relief. Those 2 weeks blurred into a cycle of diapers, formula, rocking pacing, and whispered lullabies sung off-key because they were the only songs I could remember. Every night I fell asleep on the couch with Lily beside me in her makeshift drawer crib. My body ached, my head throbbed, but every time I looked into her wide, trusting eyes, something inside me softened. I filed a police report thinking it might force Amanda to resurface. The officers were sympathetic but dismissive. "There's no crime here," one explained. "Your sister left the baby with family. She isn't missing. She's choosing not to parent." His words settled like a stone in my stomach. Choosing not to parent. I also called a family lawyer. She walked me through the labyrinth of guardianship fingerprints, home inspections, interviews. Every detail of my life was scrutinized. To prove I was fit to care for my own niece, I felt exposed, like every misstep could cost me Lily. Mark came by once reluctantly after I begged. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, staring at Lily as if she were a bomb about to explode. "So this is it?" he asked. "This is her," I whispered, bouncing her gently. "You really think you can do this?" "Alone." I bristled. "What's the alternative? Foster care?" "She's 3 months old." His face hardened. "Mia, this isn't our problem. I didn't sign up to be a dad." I looked at him, then the man I'd once imagined building a life with, and realized the fracture between us wasn't temporary. "You're right," I said softly. "You didn't." That night I packed his things into a box and left it by the door. Losing him hurt, but not as much as the thought of losing Lily. Money became the next challenge. My 1-bedroom apartment was already cramped. Lily's arrival made it impossible. Within weeks, I moved into a small 2-bedroom closer to the hospital. The rent stretched me thin, but I told myself stability mattered more than savings. I furnished her nursery with secondhand furniture, a crib from Craigslist, a rocking chair from a yard sale, cheerful wall decals that cost less than a tank of gas. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Nursing had prepared me for the medical side of childcare: fevers, rashes, scrapes. But nothing had prepared me for the emotional labyrinth. The nights when she screamed inconsolably until I cried with her. The mornings I staggered into the kitchen, body aching, praying for just 1 more hour of sleep. The crushing loneliness of realizing no one was coming to help. And then tiny miracles. Her first smile, gummy and radiant as I made ridiculous faces. The way her tiny fingers wrapped around mine with startling strength. The soft weight of her head against my chest as she finally drifted to sleep. These moments stitched themselves into me thread by thread until I realized this wasn't just Amanda's baby. She was mine too. Support came from unexpected places. My coworkers organized a baby shower a month after Lily arrived, filling my living room with onesies, diapers, and casseroles. My neighbor, Mrs. Santiago, a retired grandmotherly woman, knocked on my door one evening with a pot of homemade stew. She took one look at my exhausted face and said, "Give me that baby for 10 minutes while you eat." That small kindness cracked something open in me. I wasn't as alone as I'd thought. My parents, though, were another story. Their rare visits were laced with judgment. My mother would wrinkle her nose at the toys scattered on the floor, cluck her tongue at the bags under my eyes. "You let her cry too much," she scolded once, handing Lily back to me after holding her stiffly for a minute. "She's not a porcelain doll," I snapped before I could stop myself. My father rarely engaged at all, standing in the doorway like an unwanted inspector. His only question always the same: "Any word from Amanda?" When I said no, he would grunt, jaw clenched, and leave soon after. In the quiet hours after their visits, I replayed their words, their coldness, and wondered, why did they hate Amanda so much? Why were they so quick to disown Lily, their granddaughter? The questions gnawed at me unanswered. Meanwhile, Lily grew. She giggled when I made silly sounds. She cried until I discovered Mrs. Santiago's trick of humming a lullaby in Spanish while swaying slowly. She said her first word at 10 months, Nana. She meant banana at first, but soon it became her name for me. Nana, not Mia, not Aunt, just Nana. I built a memory box for her photos, videos, and the few items she'd come with the note from Amanda. Her first pair of shoes, the blanket that had covered her in the rain. I told myself one day when Lily was older, I'd show her everything and explain the truth in a way she could understand. As months turned into years, my anger toward Amanda morphed into something more complicated. Rage dulled into grief. Sometimes late at night, I wondered where she was, whether she was alive, whether she thought of Lily at all. I wrote unsent letters, detailing Lily's milestones, her first steps, her first birthday cake smeared across her face. I imagined mailing them, but I had no address, no way of knowing if they'd ever reach her. Despite everything, Lily thrived. On her first birthday, our tiny apartment was crammed with my coworkers, Mrs. Santiago, and the few friends who hadn't drifted away during my transformation into a single mother. We had balloons, a small cake, and Lily smeared frosting into her hair while everyone laughed. My parents declined to attend, citing prior commitments. That night, after everyone left, I tucked Lily into her crib, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "We made it through our first year." Her little chest rose and fell steadily, and I realized with startling clarity I couldn't imagine my life without her. But underneath the joy was a shadow, Amanda's silence, my parents' bitterness, a gnawing feeling that Lily's story wasn't finished, that the note she'd arrived with was only the first page of a book I hadn't yet read. And one day that book would be reopened in ways I couldn't possibly imagine. 5 years slipped by, faster than I ever thought possible. One moment I was pacing the apartment with a crying infant, the next, I was tying little shoelaces and packing a kindergarten lunchbox. Life had reorganized itself around Lily, and I discovered that the very thing I once feared the loss of, my carefully planned future, had been replaced by something richer, though infinitely messier. Our days developed a rhythm, one that belonged only to us. Mornings started with Lily tiptoeing into my bedroom, clutching her stuffed bunny, with ears nearly worn to threads. She'd climb onto my bed, whispering questions, as though I might have answers hidden under my pillow. Nana is today library day. Can I wear my sparkly shoes? Do you think the moon follows us when we drive to school? Her curiosity made me laugh even on mornings when exhaustion dragged at my bones. After breakfast, usually pancakes with blueberry smiles that she insisted on, I'd drop her at daycare before heading to my job as a school nurse. I had switched careers for her sake, trading hospital shifts for steadier hours and summers off. It was less prestigious, less financially rewarding, but it allowed me to be present for Lily's milestones. Our evenings were simple but sacred. Friday nights became movie nights, complete with blanket forts and popcorn. Sundays meant trips to the park, where Lily scrambled up climbing frames with fearless determination, while I sat on a bench, grateful for the chance to just breathe. Those routines stitched stability into her young life stability that I prayed would make up for the instability of her beginnings. But as Lily grew older, her questions grew sharper. Children notice more than adults realize. She noticed when other kids had both a mom and dad waiting at pickup. She noticed when her friends spoke about grandparents visiting for ballet recitals or soccer games. "Where's my mom?" she asked one night at 4 years old, her big eyes searching mine. I took a deep breath. I had promised myself from the beginning, no lies, only age-appropriate truths. "Your mom, my sister Amanda, wasn't ready to take care of a baby when you were born," I said gently. "So she left you with me, because she knew I would love you very much." Lily's brow furrowed. "Will she come back?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But no matter what, you and I are a family, a heart family." She tilted her head. "What's a heart family?" "It's when people aren't connected by blood, but by love. Families can look all kinds of ways." She considered this for a moment before nodding firmly. "Then we're a heart family, and heart families are stronger." That phrase, heart family, became our anthem. I even created a handmade storybook for her with drawings of different families. Some with 2 moms, some with grandparents, some with single parents, and us, an aunt and niece who loved each other fiercely. Lily carried that book to show and tell one day, beaming as she declared to her class, "This is my heart family." Still, not everyone celebrated us. My parents' rare visits remained strained, almost hostile. My mother would arrive with a too bright smile and gifts that revealed how little she actually knew Lily. One year, she brought ballet shoes, ignoring that Lily hated dance and adored dinosaurs instead. She should be in lessons, my mother insisted. All little girls are. She doesn't like ballet, I replied, keeping my voice even. She likes building forts and painting. Girls grow out of silly hobbies, she said dismissively. My father was worse in his silence. He stood in corners watching like a judge, tallying my failings. His questions, when they came, were clipped. Heard from Amanda. And when I shook my head, he would grunt and look away. After their visits, Lily always seemed quieter, her natural spark dimmed by their lack of warmth. I hated that they had this effect on her, but I kept inviting them, clinging to the faint hope they might soften. Despite their coldness, others filled the gap. Mrs. Santiago became our unofficial grandmother. She taught Lily to roll tamales and whispered Spanish lullabies that soothed her better than anything else. My coworkers rallied around us, inviting us to birthday parties, holidays, and weekend gatherings. Slowly, a chosen family formed a web of people who accepted us without judgment. Yet even in this comfort, I couldn't escape shadows. In a box under my bed, I kept Amanda's note alongside photos and mementos of Lily's early years. Sometimes late at night, I would take the box out, reread the 7 words Amanda had scrawled, and wonder what demons had driven her to walk away: drugs, fear, shame. I even hired a private investigator once using money I didn't really have. He tracked Amanda briefly to California, working in a restaurant for a few months before vanishing again. Knowing she was alive brought relief. Knowing she chose to stay gone was another wound. I wrote her letters, though I never sent them. Letters filled with milestones: Lily's first day of preschool, her obsession with dinosaurs, her demiation that she would grow up to paint the moon. I told myself maybe one day Amanda would want to know. Maybe one day Lily would. On Lily's 5th birthday, we held a small party in our apartment. Balloons dangled from the ceiling. Mrs. Santiago baked a cake, and Lily squealed with joy as frosting smeared across her cheeks. My parents didn't come. They claimed a prior commitment. That night, after the last guest left, I tucked Lily into bed. She handed me a drawing she had made earlier that day. 2 figures, one tall, one small, standing inside a giant red heart. "That's us," she explained solemnly. "You and me. Because we're a heart family." I pressed the pictures to my chest, tears stinging my eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, we are. And that's the best kind of family there is." I hung the picture on the fridge where it stayed for years, faded at the edges, but never forgotten. Life felt stable for the first time since Amanda's disappearance. Stable, but not untouched by unease. Some nights, as I watched Lily sleep, I wondered, what if Amanda returned? What if she decided she wanted Lily back? I had no answers, only the promise I had whispered 5 years earlier. "You're safe with me now." I would keep that promise no matter what it cost. By the time Lily turned 9, our lives had settled into a comforting rhythm. She was thriving in school, her curiosity endless, her laughter filling every corner of our modest apartment. I had almost convinced myself that Amanda was a ghost of the past, someone who had vanished for good. And then the phone rang. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening. Lily and I were sprawled on the floor working on her solar system project. She was coloring Saturn's rings when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I nearly ignored it, assuming it was a telemarketer. But something instinct fate, I don't know, made me swipe. "Hello." A pause, then a voice I hadn't heard in nearly a decade. "Mia." "It's me. Amanda." My stomach lurched. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My own sister, gone without a trace for 10 years, was suddenly on the other end of the line. "Where are you?" I demanded, stepping quickly into my bedroom to keep Lily from overhearing. "I'm in town," Amanda said. Her voice sounded different, lower, steadier. I was hoping we could meet." The world tilted. 1,000 questions surged. Where had she been? Why now? What did she want? But her tone, smooth yet hesitant, left me more unsettled than relieved. We agreed to meet at a cafe the next afternoon while Lily was at school. I lied to her, saying I had a doctor's appointment. My hands shook as I tucked her into bed that night, wondering if tomorrow would open a door I'd fought so hard to keep closed. The woman who walked into the cafe was not the broken sister I remembered. Amanda's hair was sleek in a bob, her blazer crisp, her handbag expensive. She looked healthy, polished, like someone who had reinvented herself. "You look good," she said as she slid into the booth across from me. "So do you," I answered cautiously. My eyes searched her face, looking for traces of the sister who had abandoned her child. "I've been sober for 7 years," she began, twisting her wedding band nervously. "I finished rehab, went back to school. I'm a graphic designer now. I'm married to Thomas. He's wonderful. She smiled, but her hands kept moving, betraying her nerves. And Lily, she asked softly, is she okay? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through years of photos. Lily's first day of kindergarten, her birthday parties, Halloween costumes, paintings she had proudly displayed on the fridge. Amanda's eyes filled with tears as she swiped through them. She's beautiful, she whispered. So beautiful. You've done an amazing job. Emotion battled inside me. Relief, anger, grief, even a strange flicker of hope. She's thriving, I said firmly, and she's my whole world. Amanda nodded, biting her lip. I'd like to meet her, if you think it's okay. My chest tightened. After everything, you think you can just walk back into her life? I know I don't deserve it, Amanda admitted, tears sliding down her cheeks. But I'm her mother, and I've changed. That word mother stabbed at me. I wanted to tell her she'd forfeited that title the night she left her baby in the rain. But I didn't. I just stared, weighing the risk. After long talks with the child psychologist, I agreed to let them meet. The psychologist advised a neutral, playful environment. So we chose the Children's Museum. The morning of the meeting, Lily was unusually quiet. She clutched her bunny Hoppy in the car. Nana, she asked, her voice small. Who are we meeting again? My sister, I said carefully. She's the mom who had you in her tummy before you were born. But remember, nothing about our life together will change. You and I are always family. Her brow furrowed. So, she's like my birth mom. Yes, I said, forcing a smile. And she wants to meet you. At the museum, Amanda stood waiting by the entrance, her smile, tight eyes shimmering with nerves. Lily clung to my hand, half hiding behind me. Hello, Lily, Amanda said, softly, crouching to her level. I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. Hi, Lily whispered, peeking at her. Then, with childlike honesty, Nana says you're her sister. That's right, Amanda said, her smile trembling. And I'm also your birth mom. That means you grew in my tummy before you were born. Lily considered this gravely, then said, But Nana's my real mom. She loves me and helps with homework and makes soup when I'm sick. Amanda's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. You're right. You're very lucky to have such a wonderful mom. The rest of the visit was tentative. Amanda followed us through exhibits, watching Lily with hungry eyes, but never pushing too hard. She bought her a small stuffed dinosaur at the gift shop, and Lily clutched it, though she didn't let go of my hand once. Driving home, Lily asked, So, that's my other mom. Yes, I said carefully. She hugged her bunny tight. I like her okay, but I don't want anything to change. Nothing will I promise, squeezing her hand. But in the quiet of the car, unease gnawed at me. Amanda had been too polished, too rehearsed, and her husband Thomas hadn't come, though she had mentioned him often. Why? As the weeks passed, Amanda became a cautious presence. She visited at parks, sent thoughtful gifts, asked careful questions about Lily's favorite books. She never challenged my role, not openly. Yet I caught glimpses of something under the surface, the way her eyes lingered when Lily hugged me, the way she slipped words like "when I'm her mom again" into conversation before quickly correcting herself. I told myself I was imagining it, that she only wanted a relationship, not a takeover, but deep down my instincts whispered otherwise. Because ghosts don't return without a reason, and Amanda hadn't come back just to watch from the sidelines. When Amanda first reappeared, I had assumed she lived far away, that her presence would be occasional, a visit here, a phone call there, something manageable. But within months, she dropped the first of many surprises. Thomas and I are moving here, she announced casually over coffee one afternoon. I nearly choked on my drink. Here, as in this city. She nodded, her smile bright but strained. He was offered a transfer, and I found a job at a design firm. We thought it would be good for Lily, to be close. The words landed like stones. I forced myself to smile, to nod, but my gut twisted. I'd barely adjusted to her sudden presence. Now she was settling and planting roots in the very soil of my carefully built life. A few weeks later, she invited me and Lily to dinner. I hesitated, but agreed. Better to see who this Thomas really was. Their new house was in a manicured suburb, the kind of place with 2-car garages and flower beds arranged like magazine spreads. Inside the walls gleamed with fresh paint, the furniture modern and expensive. I felt self-conscious immediately, thinking of our cramped apartment, the second-hand crib Lily had outgrown. Thomas greeted us with a broad smile. He was tall, handsome, in a clean-cut way, with the easy charm of someone used to winning people over. So this is Lily, he said warmly, crouching to her level. I've heard so much about you. Lily clutched my hand, but managed a polite nod. At dinner, Thomas asked her questions about school, favorite subjects, favorite colors. He listened attentively, laughed at her jokes, complimented her dinosaur drawing when she shyly showed him. On the surface, he was perfect, almost too perfect. But I noticed how his eyes flicked to Amanda whenever she spoke subtle but sharp, like he was monitoring her. And I noticed the way Amanda's posture stiffened around him, her sentences neatly packaged, as though rehearsed. Over dessert, Amanda cleared her throat, glancing nervously at Thomas before speaking. "We've been talking," she began, "and now that we're here settled, we'd like to be more involved in Lily's life." I nodded slowly. Involved how? Amanda's gaze faltered. It was Thomas who answered smoothly, his tone polished. "We think it would be best for Lily to live with us. Legally, I mean." The fork slipped from my hand, clattering against the plate. For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe. "What did you just say?" Thomas smiled as if he were explaining something obvious. "Look, Mia, you've done an incredible job. Truly. But a child belongs with her mother. Amanda is ready now. We can give Lily things you can't, a bigger home, her own room. Vacations, a college fund. Stability." My voice dropped to a whisper, trembling with fury. "I am her stability. I've raised her for 10 years while Amanda was nowhere. She is mine in every way that matters." Amanda flinched, tears brimming. "Biologically, she's mine, and I want to make up for lost time." I wanted to shout, to remind her that she hadn't just lost time, she had chosen to abandon her baby to vanish without explanation. But Lily was in the living room, proudly showing Amanda her art supplies. My anger had to stay contained. So I swallowed hard, forcing calm. This conversation is over. On the drive home, Lily chattered happily about the dessert Thomas had made. She had no idea that her world had just been threatened. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles whitened. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she asked innocently, "Can we go back there again?" They had a big yard. I smiled weakly, kissed her forehead, and whispered our mantra, "Cross my heart, you're safe with me." But in my own bed, sleep eluded me. Amanda's words echoed like a warning. She wasn't content to be a visitor in Lily's life. She wanted to replace me. Over the next weeks, Amanda and Thomas inserted themselves more. They invited Lily for outings, ice cream, the zoo. At first I joined, unable to trust them alone. Thomas was always gracious, always courteous, painting a picture of a perfect family man. But beneath that sheen, my instincts screamed. He was too polished, too careful. And sometimes I caught his eyes lingering on me, not in attraction, but in calculation, like I was an obstacle he needed to outmaneuver. One afternoon, I overheard Amanda talking to Lily. "You'd love your own room at our house," she said softly. "It's painted just for you. You could come stay sometime." I stepped in quickly. "Amanda, we've talked about this. Boundaries." Her smile faltered, but she didn't argue. Instead, she murmured, "I just want what's best for her." But whose definition of best? The final straw came at Sunday dinner. My parents, usually distant, invited us over unexpectedly. I should have sensed the trap. When Lily and I arrived, Amanda and Thomas were already there, sitting comfortably in my childhood home. My mother fussed over Amanda, praising her recovery, her new job, her husband. My father's eyes gleamed with something I hadn't seen in years: approval. During dinner, the truth dropped. "Your sister has told us everything my father said, slicing his roast with deliberate precision, about how she's turned her life around, about her plans to be a proper mother to Lily." My mother beamed. "We're so proud of her. She's ready now." I froze fork halfway to my mouth. "How long have you been in contact with her?" They exchanged a guilty glance before my father admitted 3 years. "She reached out after rehab." The room spun. 3 years. "You knew where she was for 3 years and never told me." "She asked us not to," my mother said defensively. "She needed time." "And now that she's ready," my father added firmly, "we think it's right for Lily to live with her real mother. Blood is blood." The betrayal cut deeper than anything Amanda had ever done. Not only was she trying to take Lily, but my own parents had been secretly aiding her, preparing for this moment. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping the floor. "We're leaving." Lily looked up startled. "But we haven't had dessert." I forced a smile for her sake. "We'll get ice cream on the way home, sweetheart." In the car, she was uncharacteristically quiet, staring out the window at the passing lights. Finally, she whispered, "Nana, Grandma said I might go live with Aunt Amanda and Uncle Thomas. Is that true?" My chest tightened. I pulled the car over, unbuckled, and turned to face her. "Listen to me, Lily. You and I are a family. Nothing will change that. Do you hear me?" Her lip trembled. "Cross your heart." I made the gesture, the one that had sealed our promises since she was tiny. "Cross my heart. No one is taking you from me." She nodded, but later that night I found her whimpering in her sleep. "Don't take me, don't take me," she cried, trapped in a nightmare. I held her, rocking gently, fury hardening into resolve. Amanda wanted to fight for Lily. Then she would learn I would fight harder. And this time I wouldn't just protect Lily with love. I would protect her with everything I had, legal, emotional, whatever it took. The battle lines had been drawn. The Sunday dinner should have been the warning. But I clung to a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, my parents' betrayal would stop at words spoken in anger. That hope shattered 3 weeks later when a certified letter arrived in my mailbox. I opened it at the kitchen counter while Lily colored at the table. The official language blurred as I scanned the words, "Petition for restoration of parental rights. Custody hearing scheduled." Amanda wasn't just circling like a ghost anymore. She was coming for Lily with the law on her side. I forced myself to smile at Lily, who was humming softly as she filled Saturn's rings with bright purple. "Sweetheart, I'm going to make a quick call." Okay, I stepped into the bedroom, my hands shaking. Within an hour, I had hired Julia Hernandez, a family law attorney recommended by a coworker. Her office smelled faintly of lavender children's books, stacked neatly in the waiting area. A deliberate comfort for parents like me, who walked in trembling. Julia listened intently as I spilled everything. Amanda's disappearance, the note, the years of raising Lily alone, the sudden return, the dinner ambush. When I showed her Amanda's petition, her brow furrowed. "I won't sugarcoat this," she said finally. "Biological parents have strong rights, even those absent for years. But you've been Lily's primary caregiver her entire life. Courts weigh stability heavily, especially for a 10-year-old. We'll build the case on that foundation." I nodded, swallowing hard. "What about my parents? They're siding with her." Julia sighed. "It's common in custody disputes for relatives to align with the biological parent. Their testimony could hurt, but if they've been distant, we can prove that." The weeks that followed were grueling. My evenings became stacks of paperwork, medical records, showing every pediatric appointment I'd taken Lily to school, reports documenting my involvement receipts, proving the daycare fees I'd paid alone. I gathered texts and emails from my parents, critical comments, canceled visits, evidence that their glowing claims of involvement were fiction. The stress seeped into Lily's life. She grew clingier, asking if I'd pick her up right after school, if I'd be home when she went to sleep. One night she cried over math homework, something she usually loved. When I asked why, she whispered, "What if Aunt Amanda helps me instead? What if I have to live with her?" I held her, my heart breaking. "You live with me, always." But I couldn't shake the terror that a judge might decide otherwise. At school, her teacher called me in. Lily's distracted, tearful. She told another child she might have to move away from her mom. My mom. That word both strengthened me and terrified me. Because while Lily called me that, the court saw me as guardian, a title Amanda was trying to strip away. The first pre-hearing conference set the tone. Amanda arrived in a conservative floral dress, her makeup natural, her demeanor soft, every inch the picture of a reformed mother. Thomas sat beside her in a tailored suit radiating stability, and behind them, like shadows, sat my parents. Their presence winded me. My mother gave me a tight, brittle smile. My father didn't look at me at all. Amanda's attorney, a slick man in an expensive suit, presented their case with polished precision. "My client has maintained sobriety for 7 years, established stable employment, and entered into a secure marriage. She regrets her youthful mistakes and seeks to provide her biological daughter with the home she deserves, a home with 2 parents, financial security, and extended family support." Extended family support. My parents. Their betrayal now carried legal weight. Julia responded calmly but firmly. "My client has raised Lily since she was abandoned at 3 months old. For 10 years, she has provided love, stability, and consistent care. Lily identifies Mia as her mother in every meaningful sense. Disrupting that bond would cause irreparable harm." As they sparred, I stared at Amanda. She avoided my eyes, twisting her wedding ring. For a flicker of a second, guilt flashed across her face, but Thomas's hand closed over hers, steady, controlling. Her expression smoothed. Leaving the courthouse that day, I felt both fury and despair. My own parents had aligned themselves against me. My sister wanted to erase me from my daughter's life, and Lily, sweet, innocent Lily, was the prize they were fighting over. That night, I found her asleep, clutching Hoppy, her brow furrowed even in dreams. She whimpered, "Don't take me, don't take me." I knelt beside her bed, tears burning my eyes. I won't, I whispered fiercely. Cross my heart, I won't. But inside, fear gnawed, because promises whispered in the dark meant nothing in a courtroom where bloodlines and lies could outweigh love. Over the following weeks, Amanda and Thomas's involvement escalated. They sent gifts, lavish, expensive things Lily didn't need: a tablet, new clothes, a bicycle that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. I tried to limit it, but each gift confused her. Why do they give me so many things? She asked, once frowning. Because they're trying to show they care, I said carefully. But I don't need things, she said, her voice small. I just need you. Her words nearly undid me. Meanwhile, my parents began calling more often, asking to take Lily for family dinners, where Amanda would also be present. I refused. The arguments that followed were brutal. You're being selfish, my mother accused over the phone. Amanda deserves a chance. Lily deserves her real mother. She already has one, I snapped. Blood is blood, Mia. You can't change that. I hung up before my voice could break. In quieter moments, doubts gnawed at me. Could they be right? Could a house with two parents, financial security, and blood ties really offer Lily more? Then I'd watch her run into my arms after school, her face lighting up, and I knew nothing could replace the bond we'd built. Still, their campaign wore me down. I began waking in the middle of the night, heart pounding, imagining a judge signing papers that ripped Lily from me. I saw myself standing outside their perfect suburban house, begging at the door, while Amanda closed it in my face. Julia noticed my exhaustion. Mia, listen to me. We can win this, but you have to trust the process. Document everything. Don't let their gifts or manipulation rattle you. I nodded, but inside, dread coiled tighter. Because I could feel it, Amanda wasn't just following her heart. There was something else driving her, something Thomas wasn't saying out loud. And whatever it was, I knew it wasn't about love. The courthouse loomed like a fortress, cold stone glass doors, reflecting a sky that felt too bright for the storm raging in my chest. I wore my best navy suit, the one I had bought specifically for this day, wanting to project strength, stability, motherhood carved into every line of me. Julia walked beside me, brisk and unshakable, while my heart hammered against my ribs. Lily stayed with her art teacher, who had kindly offered to keep her away from the tension. I had told her only what was necessary, that grown-ups were talking to a judge to decide about visits with Aunt Amanda. But in my bones, I knew she felt the weight of it. Children always do. Amanda and Thomas were already seated at their table when I entered the courtroom. Amanda wore a soft pastel dress, her hair styled in loose curls, a picture of maternal warmth. Thomas sat beside her in his perfectly pressed suit, exuding quiet confidence. And behind them, my parents. My mother clutching her purse with nervous hands, my father with his jaw clenched, eyes set forward in that immovable stare I had known since childhood. The judge, a silver-haired woman with sharp eyes, called the case to order. We are here to determine custody of the minor child Lily Morgan. The court's concern is the best interests of the child. Amanda's attorney spoke first. His voice was smooth, his phrasing polished like glass. He painted Amanda as a tragic heroine, a young mother who had stumbled, sought help, rebuilt herself into a success story. He praised Thomas's steady career, their 4-bedroom home in a top school district, their ability to provide a traditional family environment with 2 loving parents. Amanda dabbed her eyes delicately as he spoke as though rehearsed. Then she took the stand. Her voice trembled in all the right places. I made mistakes, she admitted, her gaze flickering toward the judge. I wasn't ready to be a mother. But I worked so hard to change. I've been sober for 7 years. I'm married, employed, stable. I want to give my daughter the life she deserves with her real mother. Her words twisted like knives. Real mother. Thomas followed. He spoke with practiced ease about their house with the big backyard, about vacations already planned, about the college fund he had started for Lily. We respect what Mia has done, he said smoothly. But Lily deserves more. She deserves opportunities only we can provide. Then came my parents. My mother's testimony was laced with false sweetness. She spoke of her deep concern that I had isolated Lily from the family, how Amanda had longed for her child, but I had kept them apart. We tried to be involved, she said with a sigh, but Mia made it difficult. She doesn't understand the importance of blood ties. My father was blunt. Amanda made mistakes, yes, but she's her mother. A child belongs with her real mother when possible. Mia has done her duty, but now it's time for Lily to be with her rightful family. Their lies landed like blows. I gripped my hands in my lap to stop them from trembling. Finally, it was my turn. Amanda's attorney cross-examined first, his questions sharp and invasive. Is it true you worked 2 jobs to make ends meet? I work full-time as a school nurse, and I do telehealth consultations at night to save for Lily's future, I answered steadily. You live in a 2-bedroom apartment, correct? Not a house. Yes, I said evenly. Close to Lily's school, her friends, her life. And you are unmarried. Have you had any serious relationships since becoming Lily's guardian? My focus has been on Lily's stability, not dating. He nodded, feigning sympathy, but his smirk betrayed the tactic, painting me as barely scraping by, inadequate compared to the polished couple across the aisle. Then Julia stood. Her voice was firm, deliberate. Mia Parker has been Lily's sole caregiver since she was 3 months old. For 10 years, she has provided consistency, stability, and unconditional love. That bond is profound. To sever it now would cause irreparable harm. She called witnesses Lily's teachers, her daycare provider neighbors, who had become our chosen family. They spoke of Lily's happiness, her thriving nature, her constant references to my mom, Nana. Her teacher's voice cracked as she said, "In 20 years of teaching, I've rarely seen a parent as attentive as Mia. Lily is thriving because she feels secure." The school counselor added professional weight. Lily identifies Mia as her mother in every way. Forcing a custody change now could lead to severe anxiety, depression, and attachment issues. Finally, I took the stand. My throat was dry, but my voice held. I told the story of the night Lily arrived, the note tucked into her car seat. Of sleepless nights, first steps, scraped knees, bedtime promises. Of how she whispered Nana before she could even say her own name. I have loved her as my own from the moment she came into my life, I said, meeting the judge's eyes. Not because she is my biological child, but because she is my child in every way that matters. Every fever, every nightmare, every triumph we've faced them together. She already has everything she needs: stability, safety, love. For a moment, the courtroom was silent. Even Amanda blinked rapidly, her composure slipping. But I knew this wasn't over, because Amanda's sudden reappearance after exactly 10 years gnawed at me like a splinter, and Thomas, too polished, too perfect, set off alarms in my gut. There was something else at play here, something beyond maternal instinct, and I was determined to uncover it. After that first round in court, I walked out shaken, but not defeated. Amanda's polished performance, my parents' lies. Thomas's smooth assurances, they all stacked against me like a towering wall. But something didn't add up. Why now? Why, after 10 silent years, had Amanda reappeared with perfect timing, a perfect husband, and a perfect story? The thought gnawed at me until I picked up the phone and called the private investigator I had once hired years ago to track Amanda. His name was Collins Gray Hair. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense tone. "I'll look into them," he said simply. "But it won't be cheap." "I don't care," I told him. "I can't afford not to know." 2 weeks later, he showed up at my apartment with a folder thick enough to make my stomach churn. "Start with Thomas," he said, spreading documents across my kitchen table. "Your sister might be reformed, but her husband, he's not what he pretends to be." I scanned the papers. Buried among mortgage records and credit histories was a charge from years ago: domestic violence, dismissed under questionable circumstances, but still there, a shadow in his past. My blood ran cold. "There's more," Collins continued grimly. "Their finances aren't as secure as they claim. The house mortgaged to the hilt. Thomas's business struggling. They've painted a picture of stability, but the reality is smoke and mirrors." I pressed a hand to my mouth. The polished perfection, the carefully rehearsed testimony, it was all a performance. And then Collins said, sliding another set of documents toward me, "There's this. Search logs, database inquiries, social media traces. They've been looking for Lily's biological father," Collins explained. "Tracked him down about 6 months ago." I froze. Amanda never even told me who he was. "Well, they found him," Collins said. "Jason Reynolds. And here's the kicker: his grandfather died last year. Jason inherited millions." The room tilted. My knees buckled, and I gripped the table to stay upright. "So that's what this is," I whispered. "This isn't about Lily. It's about money." Collins nodded grimly. "If Amanda regains custody and establishes paternity, she can claim child support retroactively and moving forward. That inheritance could funnel straight through Lily, and they'd control it." A sick, hollow fury filled me. Amanda's sudden redemption story. Thomas's too perfect confidence. My parents' sudden loyalty. It all clicked into place. This was never about maternal longing. It was about leverage, about greed. I stared at the folder, the evidence laid bare. Can you document everything? Already done, Collins said, tapping the file. Screenshots, financial records, discrepancies in their testimonies. It's airtight. For the first time in weeks, I felt a surge of hope, a weapon, proof that their picture-perfect narrative was rotten underneath. When I handed the folder to Julia, her professional calm cracked slightly. Mia, she murmured, flipping through the documents, this changes everything. We'll present this to the judge at the next hearing. Not yet. We need to time it right. Let them build their story, then dismantle it piece by piece. That night, I sat at Lily's bedside, watching her breathe in the soft glow of her nightlight. Her small hand clutched Hoppy, the stuffed bunny worn from years of comfort. She stirred in her sleep, mumbling, "Nana, don't let go." My throat tightened. I brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "I won't," I whispered. "Cross my heart, I won't." But a cold thought settled in me. Amanda wasn't acting alone. Thomas was pulling strings, calculating every move. And if he was willing to manipulate the system for money, what else was he capable of? The weeks leading to the next court date were suffocating. Amanda's camp doubled down. More gifts arrived for Lily. My parents sent texts dripping with sanctimony. Stop being selfish. Let Amanda be her mother. At school, Lily grew quieter shadows under her eyes. Her teacher called again. She had a panic attack when another child mentioned moving away. She's terrified of being taken from you. I signed her up for therapy with a child psychologist. The therapist's report was blunt. Lily exhibits severe anxiety regarding separation from her primary caregiver. Forcing a custody change would likely result in lasting trauma. It was validation, but it didn't erase my fear, because the courtroom wasn't about truth, it was about who told the most convincing story. One evening, as I sorted through more paperwork, Lily padded into the kitchen. She held a drawing, shyly hiding it behind her back. "Made you something." I smiled tiredly. "Let me see." She held it out. 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, inside a giant red heart. Across the top, in shaky letters, she'd written, "Me and Nana, forever." Tears blurred my vision. I pulled her into my arms, burying my face in her hair. "Yes, sweetheart, forever." Later, after she was asleep, I stared at Collins's folder again. Evidence that could save us or destroy everything if it backfired. I thought about Amanda's polished smile, Thomas's cold calculations, my parents' betrayal. They thought they could erase a decade of love with money lies and bloodlines. But they didn't know me. I had promised Lily she was safe with me, and I intended to keep that promise no matter what I had to expose to do it. The county courthouse loomed like a stone giant, its cold walls swallowing the morning sunlight. My stomach churned as Julia and I walked through the heavy double doors. I had barely slept the night before, my nerves twisted into knots so tight they felt impossible to unravel. This was it, the day everything could be decided. Amanda and Thomas were already seated at their table when we entered. Amanda wore a modest floral dress, her hair styled in soft waves, every inch the picture of maternal redemption. Thomas's suit looked freshly pressed, his tie knotted to perfection. He gave me a brief, almost smug glance before turning back to whisper something in Amanda's ear. Behind them sat my parents. My mother's hands clutched her purse so tightly her knuckles were white. My father's face was set in the same immovable mask he'd worn my entire life, stone cold, unreadable, unyielding. Julia leaned close as we sat. "Remember, stay calm. Let them talk, then we'll dismantle it." The judge, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, called the court to order. "We are here to determine custody of the minor child, Lily Morgan. The court's primary concern is the best interests of the child." Her gaze swept the room, firm and unsparing. Amanda testified first. Her voice was soft trembling in all the right places. "I was young. I was scared. I made terrible mistakes, but I've worked so hard to change. I'm sober. I have a good job, a stable marriage. I want to give my daughter the life she deserves with her real mother." She dabbed her eyes with a tissue. The performance was flawless. Thomas followed his tone calm and measured. "We can provide Lily with stability, financial security, and a traditional family environment. A 4-bedroom home in an excellent school district, a college fund, vacations, everything a child needs to thrive. We respect what Mia has done, but Lily deserves more than survival. She deserves opportunity." Then came my parents. My mother's voice was syrupy, dripping false concern. "We tried to be involved. Mia made it so difficult. She isolated Lily from us. Amanda deserves a chance to reconnect, and Lily deserves her true family." My father's testimony was blunt cutting. "Blood is blood. A child belongs with her mother. Mia has done her duty, but it's time for Lily to come home. Each word felt like a blade. My own parents standing in court dismantling me piece by piece. Then it was my turn. Amanda's attorney's questions came sharp as knives. Miss Parker, is it true you live in a 2-bedroom apartment, not a house? Yes, I said evenly. In a neighborhood Lily knows well, close to her school and friends. You work 2 jobs, correct? Meaning long hours away from your child. I work full-time as a school nurse and telehealth consultations after she's asleep, to build her future. You are unmarried. Have you had any significant relationships since becoming Lily's guardian? My priority has been Lily, her stability, not dating. Each question painted me as inadequate, overworked, underpaid, alone. I held steady even as my chest burned. Then Julia stood, her voice clear and commanding. She called teachers, neighbors, Lily's therapist. They testified about Lily's stability, her happiness, her deep attachment to me. Lily identifies Mia as her mother in every sense, the therapist said firmly. Forcing separation now would likely cause trauma, anxiety, depression, attachment issues. Finally, Julia nodded to me. Tell the court in your own words. I swallowed hard and spoke. From the night she arrived, abandoned at 3 months old, Lily has been my child. I fed her, rocked her through fevers, walked her to school, kissed every scraped knee. She calls me Mom. Not because I asked her to, but because that's who I've been her whole life. Love, stability, safety. Those aren't luxuries, they're necessities, and I've given them to her every single day for 10 years. Silence hung heavy in the courtroom. Then Julia rose again, holding a folder. My heart raced. Collins's evidence. The weapon we had saved for this moment. Your Honor, the respondent respectfully submits additional documentation for the court's consideration. The judge took the folder, flipping through its contents. Her neutral expression shifted first to surprise, then to sharp disapproval. She looked up, her gaze landing squarely on Amanda and Thomas. Counsel approached the bench. The attorneys clustered around as murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The judge's voice was low but edged with steel. When they returned to their seats, she adjusted her glasses and faced Amanda. Miss Morgan, are you aware your husband has been actively searching for the child's biological father, who recently inherited a substantial estate? Amanda's face drained of color. I didn't. She glanced at Thomas, who sat rigid, jaw clenched. The judge's eyes narrowed. Furthermore, there is documented evidence that your financial situation is not as stable as you claimed. Mortgages, business losses, and evidence of a prior domestic violence charge against Mr. Richards dismissed under questionable circumstances. Gasps echoed. My parents shifted uneasily behind Amanda, my mother paling, my father's jaw tightening. And most concerning, the judge continued. There is proof that Mr. and Mrs. Parker, she looked directly at my parents, have been in contact with Amanda for 3 years, contrary to sworn testimony given earlier. Perjury in my courtroom is a serious matter. My mother's lips parted in a silent gasp. My father stared at the floor, his mask cracking for the first time. The judge's voice grew stern. What was presented as maternal redemption appears upon closer examination to be motivated, at least in part, by financial gain. This court does not tolerate deception, especially when the welfare of a child is at stake. Amanda's composure shattered. Tears spilled as she whispered, I just wanted... But the judge cut her off. You wanted access to your daughter's inheritance, not to your daughter. The courtroom fell silent. My chest tightened, breath catching. After months of fear, betrayal, and sleepless nights, the truth was finally in the open. The judge turned to me, her gaze softening slightly. Miss Parker, your devotion to this child is evident. Your bond is profound. The court will consider this carefully in its ruling. Relief surged so strong I nearly collapsed. Julia squeezed my hand under the table, her silent strength anchoring me. But even as the judge called for a recess, I knew this wasn't the end. The war was nearly over, but scars had already been carved into places no ruling could heal. And when Lily asked me later what the judge had decided, I would have to find words to explain a truth no child should ever have to carry, that the people who should have loved her most had seen her not as a daughter, but as leverage. When the judge returned from recess, the courtroom seemed to shrink under her presence. Every whisper died as she adjusted her glasses and looked across the room. Having reviewed the testimony and the additional evidence, she began, her voice firm but measured. This court must act in the best interests of the child Lily Morgan. Amanda sat rigid, her fingers twisting her tissue to shreds. Thomas leaned back, arms crossed, his jaw clenched like a trap. My parents sat behind them, pale and silent. The judge continued. While I recognize Miss Morgan's efforts at rehabilitation and her stated desire to reconnect with her daughter, the circumstances surrounding this petition are troubling. The evidence suggests ulterior motives connected to financial gain. Furthermore, the petitioners provided misleading testimony, and that undermines their credibility before this court. Her gaze shifted to me. My breath caught. Miss Parker, your dedication to this child over the past 10 years is beyond dispute. The testimony from educators, medical records, and professional evaluations confirm that Lily is thriving under your care. Disrupting that stability would not serve her best interests. The gavel struck once, sharp as lightning. The petition for custody is denied. Custody remains with Mia Parker. For a moment, I couldn't move. Relief crashed over me in waves so strong I thought I might weep right there. Julia squeezed my hand, her steady nod, telling me it was real. We had won. But the judge wasn't finished. She turned to Amanda. You will be permitted limited supervised visitation through family services with the possibility of gradual expansion if deemed appropriate. This is contingent upon continued sobriety and consistent behavior. Amanda's face crumpled. Tears streaked her cheeks, but she nodded. Then the judge fixed her gaze on my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, this court notes your willingness to provide false testimony. That is unacceptable. Consider this your warning. Further deception will not be tolerated. Your credibility has been compromised. My mother's lips trembled, but no words came. My father stared at the floor, his jaw tight. The gavel struck again. Court is adjourned. I gathered my things in a daze as I stood. Amanda approached. Her voice cracked. Mia, I never meant to hurt her, or you. It just got complicated. I looked at her, drained of rage, left only with exhaustion. You could have just been honest. That would have been enough. She lowered her head. I know. I turned and walked out, sunlight spilling across the courthouse steps. For the first time in months, I felt the chains around my chest loosen. When I picked Lily up from her art teacher's house, she ran into my arms. What did the judge say? Do I get to stay with you? I knelt, holding her close. Yes, sweetheart. You're staying with me. We're still a family, just like always. Her body sagged with relief. You promised. You cross your heart promised. And I kept it, I whispered, pressing a kiss to her hair. Always. That night, we celebrated with pizza and ice cream, just the two of us. Lily chattered about school projects, her laughter spilling like sunlight through the cracks of a storm. I watched her, marveling at her resilience, her ability to smile after weeks of fear. But even in victory, the fractures remained. A week later, I met my parents at a cafe without Lily. The betrayal still burned too deep for easy reconciliation. How could you lie in court? I demanded, my voice low but sharp. How could you side against me, against Lily, when you know what we've been through? We thought we were doing the right thing, my father muttered. Amanda is her mother. And I'm not. My voice broke. After 10 years, after every scraped knee, every fever, every nightmare, I am her mother. My mother bristled. We only wanted what's best for her. No, I said firmly. You wanted what fit your idea of family. But family isn't blood. It's love. And you chose Amanda's side over both of us. Their faces hardened, but I pressed on. If you want to see Lily, there will be rules. Supervised visits only, no lies, no undermining me, and no secret alliances with Amanda. If you can't agree to that, you won't see her at all. They exchanged glances, reluctant but cornered. Finally, my mother nodded stiffly. Fine. It wasn't forgiveness, it was survival. Amanda, too, changed in the aftermath. Within months, she and Thomas separated, divorce papers filed quietly after his financial troubles came to light. When she met me for coffee one afternoon, her apology was different this time, quieter, real. You're a better mother to Lily than I could ever be, she said, tears in her eyes. I thought biology trumped everything. But it doesn't. Not when I see how she looks at you. Her voice cracked. I want to be in her life. As her birth mother, yes, but more like an aunt. Someone she can know without confusing what you two have. It wasn't redemption, but it was a start. Over time, Amanda became a cautious presence, birthday visits, occasional calls. Lily accepted her, slowly, curious, but careful. She never stopped calling me Mom. Life settled back into rhythm, though changed. I received a promotion at work, enough to move us into a slightly bigger apartment with a little yard. Lily planted flowers there, proudly showing me the tiny sprouts as if they were miracles. in a way they were. On her 11th birthday, after a party with her closest friends, Lily handed me a homemade card. Inside, in her uneven handwriting, she'd written, "To my mom who chose me every day. Biology makes relatives, but love makes families. Thank you for being my real mom." Tears blurred my eyes as I hugged her tight. In that moment, all the pain, all the fear, all the betrayal felt small compared to the gift I held in my arms. Looking back now, I realize the rainy night Amanda left Lily on my doorstep was the night my old life ended, but it was also the night a new one began. I hadn't planned on becoming a mother at 24, certainly not to my sister's abandoned child, but that unexpected beginning gave me the greatest gift I could ever imagine. Family, I've learned, isn't determined by blood or by law. It's defined by love, by choice, by who stays when life grows hardest. As Lily and I sat on our balcony one evening, watching the sun dip behind the city skyline, she leaned her head against my shoulder. "Nana," she asked thoughtfully, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if Mom hadn't left me with you?" "Sometimes," I admitted, "but then I think about all we would have missed, and I'm grateful things happened the way they did." She smiled, her small hand slipping into mine. "Me too, because we're a heart family, and heart families are forever." I squeezed her hand, a quiet promise sealed once more. Forever.